This Friday night, Alberta's independence vote. Albertans will head to the polls over whether the province should split from Canada.
Just because you acknowledge frustration doesn't mean that it goes away if you ignore it.
The controversial ballot question that's sparking anger from all sides.
A referendum to have a referendum on potentially having a referendum. I call that a never-endum.
Containing Ebola, the new security measures at Canadian airports as global health officials race to find a treatment. A Canadian teenager's mysterious disappearance.
I worry that she's going to be too trusting.
Her anxious family's desperate plea to the public. Plus, getting the last laugh.
And the girls put makeup on us, and it was like bright orange.
That's very popular in certain circles these days.
What the Late Show's demise means for the future of late-night TV.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Albertans will vote this fall on the issue of whether to remain in Canada. Alberta's Premier announced plans to hold a referendum in October with the country's future on the ballot.
Albertans will decide, not politicians, not the courts, and certainly not the Ottawa pundits.
But the actual ballot question is more convoluted than some had expected. Albertans will be asked whether they want an independence vote. In other words, a referendum on whether to hold an independence referendum. That plan is sparking criticism from all sides. Our Heather Yourex-West is tracking reaction for us and joins us from Calgary with more on the path ahead. Heather.
Jeff, like it or not, Albertans are heading into a referendum campaign summer on a question that could be risky to this province on multiple fronts.
We cannot kick this can down the road. Now is the time for Albertans to decide whether we want to spend the time, expense, and effort pursuing separation or whether Albertans want to remain in Canada.
But the question on October's ballot, essentially a referendum on a referendum, isn't winning the Premier much favor. Separatists are angry.
Danielle Smith, after promising all of those people a referendum on their question, just stabbed all of them in the back.
And Alberta First Nations are frustrated too.
We've been preparing for this to happen. We got a strategy we're putting together, and then of course legal avenue, legal recourse is always on the table.
I've had it up to here and beyond with Danielle Smith, and I can't believe that she's ignoring so many people so many times.
I'm not impressed, but I guess they need to figure out what we want.
Well, no, I don't think the majority of Albertans want a referendum.
Pollster Janet Brown says support for Alberta separatism has remained steady at around 25% for the last 8 years. But she says funny things can happen during referendum campaigns.
I think that's what everybody's worried about is a Brexit scenario. If people who are sitting on the bubble feel like they're being unheard, and if voter turnout is not what we expect, then you could see this scenario where the separatist sentiment could approach 50%.
Alberta's opposition says it's prepared to ensure that doesn't happen.
We will use every ounce of energy we have and every blood cells in every one of our bodies saying we are Canadian and we will always be Canadian.
Division is not a way to reach growth.
The Canadian Chamber of Commerce says Alberta's referendum comes at the worst possible time, risking a chill in investor confidence when Canada's economy had been positioned to grow.
Attention now shifts to rallying votes on either side, with both the governing UCP caucus and the opposition NDP promising to campaign for Alberta to stay. Jeff?
Heather Yourex-West in Calgary. Thank you, Heather. And reaction to Alberta's referendum call has been pouring in from right across the country, including the Prime Minister. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, is tracking the political fallout from Ottawa.
Canada is the greatest country in the world, but it can be better, and we're working on making it better. We're working with Alberta on making it better.
Though he was born in the Northwest Territories, Prime Minister Mark Carney grew up in Edmonton, and as a result is the country's fourth Prime Minister with deep Alberta roots.
Canada's working. We're working in a spirit of cooperative federalism to make the country better. We're renovating the country as we go, and Alberta being at the center of that is essential.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was born in Calgary and now represents a rural Alberta riding. He vows that he and his caucus will campaign against the separatists.
Conservatives love Canada. I love Canada. We're going to fight for a united Canada every day in every way. We're going to reach out to Albertans in every corner of the province to make the case for our wonderful country.
That said, Poilievre will take the opportunity from this referendum to score political points on his main adversary.
It is the job of a prime minister to unite, and it's worth asking how the current prime minister is doing in that regard, given the situation in both Quebec and in Alberta.
Then there's the Clarity Act. That was the law introduced in 1995 after Quebec's last separation vote. It was created to protect Canada's interest. But the Clarity Act's author, Stéphane Dion, said it is not yet needed for this Alberta vote.
Why the Clarity Act does not apply in this referendum? Because nothing is requested from the government of Canada after the referendum.
That's because the Alberta referendum is not actually a vote to separate or stay.
It's a referendum on a referendum.
In any event, we now have the storm clouds of a national unity crisis gathering, and those clouds are gathering this time over Alberta, not Quebec. Jeff.
As you mentioned, David, a lot of Canadians are flashing back to 1995 and the Quebec referendum. How does this one compare in your view?
Well, you know, Canada has the good fortune, Jeff, well, some might say the misfortune of those Quebec experiences. 2 referenda, 2 narrow wins by the pro-Canada side. And Federalists have learned a few things from those close calls. It's why we have the Clarity Act, for example. But what's most notably different now is that every Quebec referendum was brought forward by a government elected precisely on a promise to hold a referendum to separate. And that is not the case in Alberta. Indeed, there are critics of the separatists, and former UCP Justice Minister Tyler Shandro is among them, who've come forward to challenge the Alberta separatists to say they should do things the way they were done in Quebec. Form a political party, register candidates, and then go out and win a general election. Do that, and your referendum becomes more legitimate and more dangerous to national unity. Jeff.
David Akin in Ottawa. Thank you, David. Canadian health officials are enhancing screening measures at airports and border crossings in response to the Ebola outbreak. The World Health Organization says the risk of Ebola spreading further in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is very high. There have now been 177 suspected deaths and around 750 cases, though officials warn the true number is likely much higher. As Mike Armstrong reports, an Ontario resident who recently arrived from the region with symptoms has just tested negative.
There is a warning coming from Africa to the world to take this Ebola outbreak seriously. The WHO's regional director for the continent says the recent hantavirus outbreak got more international attention and resources. Ignoring the risk from Ebola in the DRC, he says, would be a mistake.
We should give it the attention it deserves, because no one is safe until everyone is safe.
The Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is spreading rapidly.
The head of the WHO says new resources are being moved in. The organization has permanent teams in the country already. It's adding 22 experienced international staff, and the UN is kicking in $60 million. The goal is to scale up detection and isolation and to work on preventative measures. One thing they're hoping helps is a drug that was developed to fight COVID. Obeldelsivir is a still experimental oral antiviral that may help people who've been exposed to Ebola.
This would prevent those contacts, should have they been infected by the virus, to develop the disease.
The risk to people in Canada is considered to be low at this time.
Now, there was an update from health officials in this country. Tests on a potential case in Ontario have come back negative, and travelers entering Canada are now facing enhanced screening for risk factors. Quarantine officers have been moved into airports, and extra questions added to border kiosks. Now, the U.S. is banning anyone who's visited the DRC, Uganda, or South Sudan in the last 21 days. Canadian public health officials say the international community isn't recommending that measure at the moment. The final decision is taken by Cabinet. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Canada's Indigenous Services Minister is now responding to First Nations groups who accuse the federal government of failing to deliver on its promise to provide clean drinking water to their communities. Mandy Golmasti says that a federal court does not have to intervene for the Liberal government to live up to its agreement. The court was asked on Thursday to enforce part of an $8 billion settlement. It requires the government to introduce legislation guaranteeing access to clean drinking water.
The PM made his commitment at the Assembly of First Nations. He was absolutely clear that the bill will be tabled before spring. He still intends to do so. My conversations with him are ensuring that we're able to meet what the bill intended to do.
A bill was introduced back in 2023, but it died on the order paper when Parliament was prorogued last year. Golmasti says a new bill will be introduced next month. The family of a Toronto teenager is pleading for help tonight, 1 week after she disappeared.
I worry that she's going to be too trusting, that somebody will have ill intentions. I don't know where she is, so it's really, really concerning.
14-year-old Esther was last seen just after midnight on Saturday in Toronto's North York neighborhood. Her family says she's on the autism spectrum and left home without her shoes. Toronto police have set up a dedicated tip line and are asking anyone with information to contact them. Revising the rules for green cards coming up. The changes for anyone wanting to live and work in the U.S. Plus, the need for speed. The Canadian Grand Prix roars into Montreal.
In a democratic world, no means no.
In Nuuk, Greenland, hundreds showed up to protest the new office of the U.S. consulate. Demonstrators are angry over U.S. President Donald Trump's repeated threats to take over the Danish territory. Greenland's prime minister also declined an invitation to the consulate's official opening. The territory's government says the island belongs to its people and is not for sale. NATO defense ministers are meeting in Sweden to discuss the ongoing conflict with Iran. The U.S. claims it's making progress with its peace talks, though Tehran disputes that. The Strait of Hormuz, meanwhile, remains largely closed to maritime traffic, including global oil shipments. As Jackson Prosco reports, the Trump administration is now warning NATO allies to prepare for what happens if diplomacy fails.
As NATO allies gathered in Sweden, the U.S. made it clear it's working on multiple paths to a deal with Iran, negotiation, and a plan for navigation of the Strait of Hormuz.
There's been some progress. I wouldn't exaggerate it. I wouldn't diminish it.
The U.S. claims the two sides are getting closer to a deal to start formal negotiations. Iran rejects that, characterizing the differences as deep and significant. Though Iranian officials did meet with key intermediaries from Pakistan to relay their positions.
You see what we've done to Iran. Iran is dying to make a deal. We'll see what happens.
But the U.S. Secretary of State said he told NATO allies they need a backup plan if talks fail.
And plan B is, what if Iran refuses to open the straits? What if Iran decides we refuse to open the straits, we're going to own the straits, and we're going to charge tolls for it? Okay, at that point, something has to be done about it.
NATO's Secretary General would not openly talk about how the alliance might help. In recent weeks, both the United Kingdom and France have sent aircraft carriers to the region.
This direct assault on freedom of navigation and global commerce impacts us all. It is important that countries are coming together around plans to ensure that the strait can be open for transit.
The longer the stalemate drags on, the more this global crisis grows. More than 20,000 sailors are still trapped on vessels in the Persian Gulf, unable to leave their ships for months and quickly running out of food.
They need a collective intervention because they are key for our economies, for the supply chains, but also they are civilians.
Like the rest of the world, they can only wait for the two sides to make a deal, trapped by a conflict that has no end in sight. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
The White House is changing the rules for green cards. Foreigners seeking to live and work in the U.S. will now have to file their paperwork from their home countries. The Department of Homeland Security says the switch will allow the immigration system to function as intended instead of incentivizing loopholes. But refugee support groups are condemning the change, saying it forces many U.S. residents to return to dangerous countries they fled in order to process their applications for permanent residency. Tulsi Gabbard is resigning as Donald Trump's Director of National Intelligence to be with her husband as he fights cancer. She says she wants to fully support him after he was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. Gabbard is the fourth cabinet official to depart during Trump's second term. A plea to the public still ahead. British police update their investigation into former Prince Andrew's alleged sexual misconduct.
This guy walking his dog finds a body.
As a community, we were in shock.
About 6 feet from Michelle's body, they found a cigarette butt. It's going to be the killer's cigarette butt. He had admitted to killing her. Then he recants it.
Crime Beat tonight on Global.
Police in the UK are expanding their investigation into former Prince Andrew over his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Investigators say they're looking at a range of possible offenses related to misconduct in public office during his time serving as trade envoy. As Vincent McAviney reports, that could include allegations of sexual misconduct.
The extraordinary royal photograph that went viral around the world for all the wrong reasons. Andrew caught moments after being released under investigation in February, following his arrest and questioning. Detectives investigating alleged misconduct in public office searched his former home at Royal Lodge in Windsor and his temporary home in Norfolk. The initial allegation emerged from the publication of files related to Jeffrey Epstein in the US and centred on the alleged leaking of British government reports to the convicted paedophile. Now detectives are making a fresh public appeal, urging anyone with information about any alleged misconduct by the former prince to come forward. They are reportedly concerned the public may assume the investigation is limited to the alleged leaking of government material, but it is also looking into possible sexual misconduct and corruption. Detectives are also seeking material from the US Department of Justice. Despite the release of heavily redacted files, no documents have yet been provided to British authorities. Meanwhile, on Thursday, the British government published papers regarding Andrew's appointment as a trade envoy in 2000.
I want to assure the House that we have proceeded on the basis of maximum transparency. I reiterate, the government is fully cooperating with Thames Valley Police in their investigation.
The papers reveal the late Queen was very keen for her son to take on a prominent role as trade envoy, and that he underwent no formal security vetting. Andrew has consistently denied any wrongdoing in relation to his association with Epstein, and has denied receiving any personal benefit from his time as a UK trade envoy. Senior members of the royal family have been trying to continue with their normal duties this week, but hanging over all of them is the prospect that, depending on the information detectives receive, charges against Andrew could be brought in the coming year, plunging the family into an unprecedented crisis. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Stephen Colbert signs off. Up next, the history and the highlights from the final episode of The Late Show.
And liftoff. For the most compelling stories told by the country's best journalists.
There are a lot of very excited people here at the Canadian Space Agency.
Watch Canada's #1 national newscast.
We're here at one of 3 official border crossings between Iran and Turkey.
Use integrity splashdowns.
It was hard, it was challenging, it was dangerous, but it was the time of our lives.
The award-winning Global National with Donna Friesen.
The Montreal Canadiens got off to a triumphant start in the Eastern Conference Final of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Habs crushed the Carolina Hurricanes 6-2 last night. The puck drops on Game 2 tomorrow in Raleigh, North Carolina. And from the rink to the track, Montrealers are also taking in the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend. All eyes are on 19-year-old phenom Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who claimed the top spot for Mercedes in the opening practice session. A win in Montreal would put the Italian on track to become one of the youngest champions the sport has ever seen. Well, after 33 years, The Late Show said a final goodnight. The last episode aired yesterday with a star-studded lineup joining Stephen Colbert, who took a few final swipes at CBS and Donald Trump before signing off for the last time. Eric Sorensen reports on the end of an era in late-night TV.
Leo, please!
In spite of rumors, of course the Pope wasn't going to be there. The gag also cut out other hopefuls like Ryan Reynolds.
I hate to tell you, buddy, you're not my last guest. Ouchie.
Now they say they're here. In recent days, a parade of big names from Bruce Springsteen to Robert De Niro to Barack Obama came by.
If I knew you were going to do that, I would have come out here months ago.
What happened? When Colbert took over The Late Show, he made a name for himself targeting Donald Trump.
Their orange manatee.
Through 2 presidencies. When he was canceled last July, CBS parent company Paramount said it was for purely financial reasons. Others, including David Letterman, thought it was to appease Trump.
You can take a man's show, you can't take a man's voice.
No.
This is like being...
The Late Show's first host joined Colbert on the Ed Sullivan Theater roof to send a message to CBS.
Yes!
The space where Colbert performed has chronicled changing eras. It began as a music hall featuring vaudeville acts like this that eventually disappeared. Then radio theater with the likes of Canadian Guy Lombardo came and went. Ed Sullivan, who introduced North America to the Beatles, those big TV variety shows faded away. Then Letterman brought late night talk to the same theater. And Colbert, fittingly, his last guest was actually a Beatle, Paul McCartney.
That's here. Right
That's here?
Right here. I always remember the girls in the balcony.
But will Jimmy Kimmel and the rest of late night itself survive the Trump administration's political pressure on media giants?
They're kowtowing. They'll do whatever he wants. Give us the changes you need, Donald. So it's dangerous. It's a very strange time and unprecedented for sure.
Can big budget shows even stand up to online content that is everywhere and cheaper?
We were here to feel the news with you. And I don't know about you, but I sure have felt it.
Stephen Colbert is moving on, writing the new Lord of the Rings film script. But he's had a heck of a ride in what may be seen as the golden age of late night talk. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is this patriotic sign near Piney, Manitoba. We love seeing your Canada, so please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.